And ESPN 105.9 The Zone, brought to you by Welcome Home Beef. It just tastes good. Great steaks. You can buy them there. Welcome Home Beef in Starkville, Mississippi. They also ship around the country. Welcome Home Beef. Blake I've had several steaks from there, but I got them to ship the Blakey Blakester some steaks.
That's right. 4 fillets. I got 1 left.
Okay.
I haven't shared any with anyone. They're delicious.
Good for you.
And I use my Jonesy Q Ecstasy Rub with a few other things on top because I like to add a little spice.
Did you?
Oh, man. It's been a marvelous discovery for rubs, you know? Because I used to basically make them myself at home.
Yeah.
Now I can take that out.
That's beautiful.
Like I said, I'm a man of leisure.
You are a man of leisure. Welcome Home Beef, Main Street in Starkville. That's where you can buy fillets, New York strips, ribeyes, and so on. And get ready for game day. They'll also ship to your home, welcomehomebeef.com. And Blake mentioned the Jonesy Q line of rubs, seasonings, and sauces. You can find all that at the Y'all Lifestyle Shop in the Township. The Y'all Lifestyle Shop in the Township by Nukes. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Welcome in our friend, NFL Insider. He is Mike Detillier, WWL Radio New Orleans, and Mike joins us on the Parish Brewing guest line. Oh, Mike, what a win for the Saints. And I would like this Saints D is we always talk about Sean and Drew and all the offensive weapons. But walk me through your takeaway from the Saints defense and their performance against the Bucs.
Well, 5 years ago, they wouldn't have won this game. It's been what they have done in the last 5 years to accumulate talent on defense and bolster their special teams. It's been a point of interest. Sean has brought it up numerous times on his radio show with us that, you know, spending so much time trying to find the right 53, maybe not the most talented 53, but the right 53. And I know what he means there in that he's got guys on his team that made it on special teams. And you look at the big difference in that football game, you know, both quarterbacks and offenses were sluggish in that game. But, man, and I'll give credit to Tampa Bay, too. Their defense is pretty doggone good.
Yeah, it is.
The Saints' defense and special teams won it for them. But you think about, you know, you got first-round pick guys. You know, Cam has been there, and he's been one of the great players in the NFL today at defensive end against the run and also as a pass rusher. But they've spent first-round picks on Sheldon Rankins, on Marcus Davenport. They spent a lot of money to bring in Malcolm Brown, who's a former first-round pick from the New England Patriots. David Onyemata, they threw, you know, a lot of money to keep him around. Demario Davis was a big free agent pickup for them. And other than Jonathan Vilma, I can't think of another player in the Payton time frame that has had a bigger impact that you haven't selected. You got him in free agency. With Vilma, it was a trade. Anzalone, when he's healthy, he's a really good player. Marshawn Lattimore, first-round pick. I think underrated. And Marcus Williams was second-round pick. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, they traded up in round 4 to get him, to select him real early. And, you know, they brought Malcolm Jenkins in to be the communicator, to be the chirper back there, because they had some mental breakdowns. And they wanted somebody to be able to communicate well. But I think the biggest pickup, and it sort of has flown under the radar because of when they got him, has been Jackrabbit, Janoris Jenkins. You know, they got Janoris late last year when the Giants cut him, and he's coming here, and, man, he got a swagger to him. Now, he's going to give up some big plays now and then, but, boy, he's going to make some too. And you saw it Sunday. You know, he undercut that receiver, came in, made the play, and, man, he's off to the races with it. He's not like most defensive backs. That ball hits the hands, the ball hits the ground. With Jenkins, he plays it, and he got hands like a receiver. And so they have spent a lot of money, a lot of capital on defense. You look at Will Lutz, Thomas Morstead, you know, two of the better players at their positions in the NFL as a place kicker and a punter. Justin Hardy, who they picked up from Houston, has been a tremendous special teams player. And Marcus Hunt, Marcus has made a career out of blocking kicks. Did it at SMU. He's done it, in the National Football League. And so they have spent a lot of time, a lot of effort. And let me not forget Deontay Harris, because man, you can tell he's got something special with him in the return game, that it has been the point of interest for this football team and a precursor to post Drew Brees, that you're going to have to win maybe a little bit different way. And they've certainly put a lot of effort and a lot of picks, a lot of money on defense. And you saw it Sunday. It was frustrating for Brady. You could see it in his body language. Man, he was hussing and cussing pretty good out there. And they're a really talented individual team. Now, smart people figure it out. That smart people like what they got, they're going to figure it out. But early on, I think because of the continuity that the Saints were able to keep on this team, it has given them the advantage. And you saw it Sunday. Because the next time you see the Bucs, they're not going to be the same team. Right. They're going to be a better football team.
Right. Mike Detillier on the Parish Brewing guest line. You're listening to 105.9 The Zone. You can watch the show on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports. Talking Saints, they grabbed a big win over the Buccaneers on Sunday. Mike, were you there at the game?
I sure was.
Nice.
It was weird.
I bet.
It was weird. Because that's one of the best home field advantages in pro football.
Sure.
Man, Kansas City for an outdoor stadium, you wouldn't know it's outdoors if you're there, man. It's pretty loud. You play in that Superdome. We've heard it from every quarterback, coach, team, talk about just how loud it is, and you can't communicate. And it was eerie to be there, and there's nobody there, but a couple dozen, reporters and stuff, and that piped-in crowd noise. Man, I've heard louder noises walking down Bourbon Street than I heard Sunday. So, again, that was no home field advantage for either team. And it's funny, about a month ago, and talking to Coach O, he brought it up to me. He was like, Mike, I don't know. We got to figure out a way to make our own energy. And last week I heard Sean say the exact same thing. And so that's part of the challenge, if you're playing in a stadium with nobody in it, to sort of make your own energy. And I think a play like the blocked field goal and the interception for a touchdown, that sort of creates your own energy.
Mike, I want to switch gears here. I'm not sure. You've told some great stories over the years on the show, but, Sean Payton, I just can't say enough about him. What he did, he got a little trouble, 3 7-9s, comes back, and he's just a bona fide, Hall of Famer, great coach, and he's one of the top ones in the NFL. Tell the story on how in the world he goes from the Cowboys, where he's not even really a coordinator, but I think he is the assistant head coach, maybe to Parcells, and how he gets the job in New Orleans.
He was not the owner's pick. I'm going to tell you that. This is post-Katrina. And Tom Benson wanted a coach with head coaching experience and a little bit of name on the marquee. Mike Sherman had been fired from Green Bay. Mike had a really good run in Green Bay with Brett, but they didn't have a good season, and so he got pink slipped. And that's who Tom Benson wanted. And Mickey Loomis sort of said, that's not the guy I would go with. And Mickey took some advice from John Fox, who was at that time the coach of the Carolina Panthers. And John strongly suggested Sean Payton. Sean had been interviewed in Green Bay, and they decided to go with Mike McCarthy instead. And so Sean comes here. Now, can you imagine? This is 2006, And, New Orleans is just in the, stages of recovery for Katrina. And you got a football team that, is in disarray. And there's a lot of uncertainty. I think it's not talked about, but really, Tom Benson wanted to move this team. In reality, he wanted to go to San Antonio. And he was the guy that stepped up when they needed it to. When John Meekum wanted to sell, he wanted to go to Jacksonville. And Benson bought the team, but I'm convinced Benson wanted out. And he wanted to go to San Antonio. They just wouldn't give him a new stadium. So Sean comes here, and you could tell real quickly he was the man in charge. And once they got Drew Brees, you sort of knew that, and that's not who he really wanted either. He tried to trade for Tony Romo. That was the guy he really wanted. But the asking price was a little too high. And so they signed Drew. They rolled the dice. Drew's coming off a major shoulder surgery. And lo and behold, Houston decides to pick Mario Williams instead of Reggie Bush. And so it all rolled up. And I think still the greatest coaching job Sean has ever done was 06. 29 new players on this football team. They went to the NFC Championship game and lost to the Bears in Chicago. I still look at that. I know they won the championship in 09. I thought the 11 team was tremendous.
Yes.
That was a tremendous football team. You lost in a crazy affair out on the coast against the 49ers. 2018, the no call, which, whatever. But that was a really talented team. But Sean plays with a sense of confidence. He's got a little bit of swagger to him, like Parcells. If you listen to him, he's got a lot of Bill in him in the way he talks. And so he has been this offensive juggernaut type guy. He knew how to do that part. But I think all great coaches understand you got to change with the times. And that has been his biggest asset as a coach, to change with the times. And he's done that. He's done a tremendous job of retooling this team, not just to get in track meets, because you know what track meets get you? 7-9 and 8-8.
Right.
Okay, if you got to score high 30s or 40s every week to win, you're going to win one, you're going to lose one. He knew that for him to get back to being a team that could play in January, you got to get better on defense. And you got to be able to reload your special teams, and he's done that. And I give him a lot of credit for it. And he's went out and got a guy like Jeff Ireland and to be in his ear, to tell him and give him advice. Because I think the worst thing, I heard this years ago from Warren Buffett, and I believe it, that success is the worst motivator in the world when you got it, because you think you know everything with success. And you need somebody to tell you sometimes when you're thinking wrong. And I think Jeff Ireland, when they brought him in to help in talent evaluation, has really been a godsend for this football team, along with Terry Fontenot, who is really, I think, one day going to be a general manager in the NFL. Those two guys have really been able to connect with Sean and give him advice on players that in the past he may not have taken.
Right.
I know it better than you. And again, it's part of success, that you've got to be able to have people around you when maybe a decision is made out of emotion more than thinking it through, to give you that advice. That's been the biggest change in Sean.
Mike Detillier talking Saints on the Parish Brewing guest line. Mickey Loomis convinced the late Tom Benson to go with Sean Payton?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, he convinced Mr. Benson to go that route. Tom was not sure about it. He was not sure about it at all. He wanted Sherman to be the head coach because he had experience And again, he had a little bit of name on the marquee because he was in Green Bay, and they had great success with Brett. But Mickey felt, I think, a certain bond after interviewing Sean that he was the guy, he was the right guy for the Saints. And Mickey was right. He really was.
Man,
He
Mickey
was
Loomis
absolutely
deserves, like, I mean, Mike, you know it better than we do because you've been down there your whole life. But we all know what the Saints were, prior to '06 or Katrina or however you want to frame it up. I mean, it's one of the best hires in the history of the NFL.
And he wasn't a guy. He had been interviewed. He talked about he went to Oakland and interviewed with Al Davis. And
Oh,
he said,
wow.
I'm not really sure it was an interview more than, because Al had a way of bringing in the young assistants. So tell me what you know. And Al was sort of a collector of information. A lot of times he'd bring in young coaches and, I want to hear what you think. And Al was one of these guys that really believed that you learned different things from younger people. He always had that in mind. We had John Roush on. God bless him. He's passed away. And when Al was the head coach of the Raiders, and then in 66, he becomes the commissioner of the AFL. Roush becomes the head coach. And John was a young assistant. John had been here in New Orleans, but he had been an assistant at Tulane and then got an assistant coaching job with the Raiders under Al. And he said, he just grilled me about what I knew about football. And he said, I found out throughout the years he was like that with everybody. Now, Al and John clashed. And they went to the Super Bowl, and John left. He couldn't take Al anymore. So who does he replace him with? An even younger coach by the name of John Madden. John was an assistant coach. He had never been a head coach before in his life. And then, when John retires, who does he replace him with? A young coach by the name of Tom Flores, who was a former player with the Raiders, and he had just that situation of trying to pick your brain, and Sean felt he was doing that. He wasn't really being interviewed for a job. He was being kind of interrogated for information from Davis, and that's just the way Al was. Al would go to college campuses. And, man, in his prime, it didn't take him long to figure out if a guy could play or not. He knew it very quickly in watching him. I don't know if you got time for a story, but one of the things, he was with the San Diego Chargers as an assistant coach. He goes to Grambling. And Ernie Ladd told me this story. Ernie was, I'd been picked by the Bears, and I'd been picked by the Chargers. I'd never been on a plane before in my life. And he says, Al wants to meet, but on the tarmac in a plane. So he said, we get on the plane, we start talking, and we start playing dominoes, which Ernie loved to play, and so did Al. And he said, next thing you know, man, he said, I'm starting to feel like the plane's moving. And so I said, Mr. Davis, the plane's moving. He said, don't worry about that. He said, they just moving the plane. So next thing you know, he said, I looked down, and, it was moving all right, but in the air. It was Baron Hilton's plane. Baron Hilton, the hotel magnate at that time, it was his private plane. They were flying him to San Diego. Ernie said, I'd never been on a plane before in my life. He said, man, I was scared to death, and they offered Ernie a $100,000 signing bonus to play with the Chargers. And he said, listen, I got to go back home to talk to my mom and my grandmother about this. And Al said, sure, we'll fly you back. And Ernie talks about when he got home, he told his grandmother about, they offered me a $100,000 signing bonus. And I don't know what it was, if it was $18,000 or $19,000 a year that he was going to make, but he was going to get $100,000 up front. and his grandmother told him, "Why didn't you sign that when they offered it to you? They might not offer it to you a second time." But that was Al, to go to Grambling, Louisiana, find Ernie Ladd, and say, "Man, that's the guy I wanted." Lance Allworth says almost the exact same story happened to him when he was at Arkansas.
Wow.
That he took Baron Hilton's plane. They started talking. Next thing you know, the plane's in the air. They're going to San Diego.
What a way to recruit.
But that was Al being Al, and he wasn't the head coach. He was an assistant coach. And Al, I think, goes down as one of the few guys that never played high school football and yet became a head coach in the National Football League.
That's
he was a baseball
insane,
player.
Mike.
He was a baseball player, and he just had that New York accent, and and just the way he was. Man, we could do a long time on Al, but getting back to the point of the story is Sean had been interviewed before with the Raiders and also with Green Bay, and Coach Parcells had told him, "Hey, listen, get your interviews out of the way, and then I want a decision. I don't want this to last." And once Tom Benson gave Mickey Loomis the red light, the green light to hire him, after I think putting up the red light, that was a game changer for this organization, because other than Benson hiring Jim Finks to run the team in 1986, and Finks hires Jim Mora, and that was not Mr. Benson's first choice either. He wanted Richie Pettibone, and who was at that time the defensive coordinator, a New Orleanian. He was with the Redskins. Those were the two big hires for this organization, and certainly turned the franchise, what Finks did, to give some credibility back in the late 80s, early 90s before he passed on. And then Mickey hiring Sean. I mean, those two, they had Mount Everest as far as the hires are concerned.
Man, talking about the game changer for New Orleans, the city, and the franchise. Mike Detillier, at Mike Detillier on Twitter, WWL Radio. He's all over TV, New Orleans, on the Parish Canebrake Brewing guest line. Mike, have a super week, my man. We'll talk next week.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, both.
At Mike Detillier on Twitter. He's a dude. I mean, that guy knows more people in football. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why I'm surprised, but talking about range and depth, coming from the top rope. Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis, Tom Benson, Al Davis, among others, all in one 20-minute conversation. That'll be delicious on the podcast a little bit later. Hey, the show is brought to you by RPT and Rick's Pro Truck. Spraying bedliners and lift kits. RPT, ricksprotruck.com. Hour number 3 coming up.